Hey everyone, welcome back to the Waiting For It podcast. On this week's episode, we decided to do a part two talking about friendships and weight loss journeys just because we feel like there was some more perspectives that we really wanted to add in. However, we will be discussing the topic that we listed last week later on. So let's dive in.
Okay, so last week we talked about navigating friendships, and we've had a few extra thoughts about that. And Sam and I got to talking about her experiences. And Sam, do you want to share some of the things that we talked about?
Yeah, so it was interesting because last week I know that we discussed your interactions that you've had with your friends in person throughout your journey. And so my perspective is a little bit different just because I don't really have that many friends that I see on a regular basis, if any. And so to give some like context behind everything first is when I moved away from home, I moved away from home like 2.5 hours away. So when I did that, all of my friendships back home kind of died down. I seemed to always be that person that would reach out to be like, hey, you want to hang out? Do you want to go do something fun? And it wasn't always reciprocated the opposite way. And so, over the years, I've kind of just been like, you know what, I'm done reaching out and trying to keep these friendships afloat. If they don't want to be a part of my life, that's perfectly fine. They don't have to be. And moving away, I was also in a leadership position for my work. So I moved away, knew no one except for my then boyfriend, now husband. And so I was in this leadership position to where if I wanted to go hang out with people, I really couldn't because they were my direct reports in a sense. And so it was always just kind of like a weird dynamic. I think I kind of focused more on my career. And there would be moments where friends would reach out, friends who I haven't seen in years, say, hey, Sam, like, do you want to get together? And I immediately went to, oh my God, like they're going to think I'm huge because I've gained 10 pounds, 20 pounds, whatever it is. And so I think for myself, I kind of kept myself back from those friendships because I was so embarrassed with the weight that I was gaining, and I was gaining weight very rapidly. And I think it had to do with my career. I was in a very stressful environment and working with the general public. And it just was kind of a recipe for disaster, if you will. And so I even remember like not going to funerals of my coworkers.
Oh, wow.
Which is crazy. Like I remember this really good co-manager, like her and I managed together, and she died tragically in a car accident. And everyone, like legit, like 15 people was like, hey, message me, here's a funeral, this and that. Like, did you hear that so-and-so passed away? I was like, oh my God. And I could not go to that funeral. I was like, don't do it. Like, they're going to judge you. They're going to think X, Y, and Z. And so like you start to miss out on those opportunities that you somewhat crave. Like you want to like be able to hang out with everyone. So it's an interesting dynamic just because turning to social media, and I think you, Chris, can relate to this also. Yeah. It's like strangers on the internet are becoming our best friends because they know exactly what we're going through. And I think for my own personal friendships, no friend, like I was always a fat friend. Like out of my entire group, I was always the bigger one. And so I think those friendships, like they could never really understand what I was going through. And it was very frustrating. You'd have those people who were like 50 pounds lighter, skinny people think, oh my God, I'm so fat. In my mind, I'm like, well, if you think you're fat, then what do you think of me? And so going on to social media and finding all these incredible people and building friendships, it's really amazing to finally accomplish and finally feel like, you're part of something other than, being a mom all day or working mom or work, so it's just kind of interesting.
Yeah, well, I'm sure the mom part gets in the way too, because you're busy with that. I mean, you're not only a busy professional, but you're also a busy mom on top of that. And I've talked to you before where, there's sometimes your kids just want you. They don't want the other parent. It's just kind of happens that way. And sometimes you just want your mom.
Yeah.
So that's got to add to it as well. But it
Yeah.
kind of goes back to like what we were talking about before, is that, you know, you're it's easier to make new friendships, and then all of a sudden you find yourself amongst a bunch of people who completely understand what you're going through, and you wind up bonding with them. And that's how you and I met, and
Hmm.
it's how like thousands of us have met over the last, I don't know, in my case 20 weeks. I'm in the middle of my 20th week now, and I feel like I've got thousands of friends. And you and we've said this, like, I think on an earlier podcast, that it's just kind of amazing how your biggest supporters and cheerleaders can be complete strangers, and they're some of your best friends overnight in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
So
No, I agree. And I think so. And it was interesting because, like, last week when you were talking about your friendships, and I'm the same way too, because you're like, I don't like the attention. I don't want it to be
yeah,
everything about me. Like, that's not what I'm comfortable with. And for me, I am the total same way. Like, if you compliment me, I'm just very like, I feel very weird being complimented. And I think deep down, there is a part of myself, I can't speak for yourself, that sometimes like I wish someone could just meet me in person and be like, oh my God, like, look at what you have accomplished. Or, you're looking so great and everything. So it's very weird to be like, I don't want any attention whatsoever, but like deep down, like I kind of
I
just
do.
want something. Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is a thought. I literally just thought about this before we hopped on this podcast and I wrote it down. And this is probably maybe a topic for another episode, but I was thinking of that specific feeling of wanting attention, but not being comfortable with the attention that you're getting. And I wonder if for some of us, and I can't speak for yourself, but I think, do we not want the attention because of past traumas that we've had or past experiences?
Nailed it.
And for myself, and I'll just speak frankly, I mean, I'm very open and vulnerable. Um, like I was like very young.
Yeah.
And it wasn't anything like too, I thank God, it wasn't anything too extravagant, but for me, it was very triggering. It was a very traumatic experience. And so whenever I get compliments, I've actually had a few of them. When I get compliments, I immediately kind of go back to those experiences because it was always, oh, you look so good. What are you doing? Like, let me touch you, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I was tensing up in those situations because I was very traumatized. And so now it's kind of like I do want attention, but when I do get it, my brain automatically goes to those experiences. And so I thought that that was an interesting thought that I legit just thought before we hopped on here. And again, we can dive deeper in another episode if you wanted to. Um, but
Well, I
yeah,
think that's a legit thing, and it's like not to. And I'm not. I hope this doesn't sound like I'm diminishing any of your experience with that, because all the trauma is important to deal with. But I'm curious if the compliments, even as wonderful as they are, it's the uncomfortability could be the hurt behind a lot of our anxiety, maybe, about getting compliments, because they didn't really feel sincere for so long.
right.
And we can deal with if you'd like, with the well, at another time if you want, but on the friendship level and on the relationship level of building relationships with people, I still think it has a lot to do with the hurt behind it, which also includes your experience in that as well. It's just a little deeper than most of ours. But I always feel like when people overly compliment me, that there's a hurt coming. Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
I think so a little bit. Like give me an example of what you're referring to.
Well, I mean, think about it. When you're at your heaviest, if you
Mhm.
can put yourself back in that mindset, which for me is not that hard to do, unfortunately, is it just wasn't that long ago, and it was a huge percentage of my life. Is that when people overly complimented me, there was usually something that they were overcompensating for, and there was a hurt that came from it, because it was always like, "Oh, you look so great today. Oh, it's like, this is a really good color on you." It's like, but there was always this underlying thing of like, why can't you just not be heavy? Or,
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yes. Hmm.
it was almost always a preface for something that they were going to say that was hurtful, whether they meant it or not.
Yeah.
And so when I get overly complimented, I feel like there's like it's being muffled by something that I'm about to hear that's not good.
Yeah. Or it's kind of like, well, what are they trying to overcompensate with
Yeah.
their own thoughts of what they've had of me in the past, maybe?
Very simply said, it's like, what do you want?
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
So
Yes.
thank you. What do you want? Just get to
Right.
it.
Yeah. Yep. No, I totally agree with that. Yeah, it's interesting. Um, when you have that dynamic in that conversation, or it's kind of like, well, and I think this goes for everyone of, well, you've never said anything about me before, so why all of a sudden are you starting to
Yeah.
get interested, or why all of a sudden are you starting to get complimented? Is it because of X, Y, and Z, or whatever it is? And so I think that is also kind of hard to navigate, because it's like, is this friendship a genuine friendship now,
Yeah.
or it's because I'm finally losing weight?
Well, we're also making new people pay the price for that too. Have you noticed this yet? Because I posted a video, I forget what the actual topic was in particular, but the response to it was, if they didn't want you before, then why do they want you now? So just bypass them. The problem with that is a lot of those people we're already kind of isolating ourselves from. So these are new people that are complimenting us that have nothing to do with any of that, and we're automatically making them pay that price.
Yeah.
It's kind of like dating. We're making the, our our spouses and our current dating, the people that we're dating, pay the price for all those people that hurt us in the past. So I
Right.
think there's like this similar pattern that I'm starting to see in all of this. And I even said recently that when you get closer to the end of your weight loss journey, you're not ready for it. You're just not. There's
Yeah.
all kinds of attention that comes from it, and a lot of comments that you're just like, what, wait. It's a little too comfortable to go back. It's a
Yeah.
little too comfortable to say I give up, because of the mental part of it that comes with it too. So
Yeah.
friendships are weird to begin with, and then we add another element to it, and it's like, here we are.
Yeah, it's kind of like I mean, you said it perfectly, dating. It's kind of like, oh, well, if you and I were dating and that you were like, hey, I'm gonna go hang out with the boys, I would be like, no, but who are you with though?
And
Like, or
why?
are you with so and so? Because of my past dating of maybe my ex cheating on me, I don't trust you fully enough yet to really let you in. I think we all kind of have our guards up, or could have our guards up when meeting new friends, or even like seeing old acquaintances also. Because it's kind of like, well, wait, I don't know how to. I used to be able to conversate with you and have amazing conversations and get along so well, but now I kind of don't know you because you're all the way over here in your journey. I'm all the way over here in mine, whatever have you. So it's interesting to work
Yeah.
through.
Well, I mean, just really, relationships are difficult to begin with. And it's like, I mean, you and I have shared some of my recent new friendships have been very difficult to navigate because, and you've had to like walk me off the ledge a few times because, I read too much into things. I don't give people the opportunity to really, to really like or love me, because I'm like, what do they mean by that? You know what I mean? So all these recent conversations you and I have had, it's like,
Mhm.
am I going to give them an opportunity to even be my friend? I don't know.
Yeah, like
Because
what's their
what's your
motive?
MO? What's your
Yeah,
MO, dude? You know what
yeah,
I mean?
yeah, yep. Like, what do they really want from me, or what's really happening? Yeah,
Yeah. So I get in my headspace, and I think that we're all going to do that on some level, depending on where we are in life and who, if we're married or if we're not married or whatever. Dating, I can't imagine for the single people out there what that must be like, because that's even another layer to that. So I don't know. I know we're talking mostly about friendships, but all that, this is really, I mean, relationship problems at the end of weight loss and even during weight loss is traumatic in its
Mhm.
own.
And I think talking about that, because even when it comes to like new friendships, I think sometimes I think to myself, well, what if they find out how big I was in the past? Would they still like
Oh
me?
yeah.
So it's that whole anxiety kind of going through your head of like, man, like this is a great new friendship, but what happens if they found out that I used to be a binge eater, or I used to weigh 35, almost 36 pounds heavier than I am now? Like, would they still like me? Like, would they still want to be my friend, etc.? So that's
It's like you're in my head. I just had this situation, and I haven't even told you about this yet. I made a new friend who is in the medical profession and is going through a lot of their own stuff, and I'm I actually had to just push myself over the ledge and say, this is my old TikTok page. I'd like for you to, if you get a moment and you want to go down a rabbit hole, this is the place to get to know me,
Yeah.
because I wanted that information in front of them, because I wanted them to understand who I was. And it really took a lot for me to do that, because it's just so easy to start from now and go
Yeah.
forward. But that's not really who we are. We've been through a lot.
Yeah.
So they need to understand that if they want to be our friend. And, at some point, take your time. There's a lot of content there, but that's who I am. And it's important that I think people understand that. And it's too easy for us to say, this is day one. And that's not fair. I don't think
Right.
to your friends.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if it was, I want to say it was Liz when she was on the podcast, or maybe it was just her and I having a conversation of it, but about like sharing what we're doing on like Facebook. Cause I mean, Facebook is more for like friends, family. It's not so much like the hot social media that, TikTok is, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I don't know. Like, do I want to share that with everyone to be like, hey, this is like what's been going on with me? Because it's like, do I want them in my new little world and with all my new friends and this and that? Like, I don't know how to. I've been thinking about it a lot lately,
It's
but I
important
don't.
to it's important to kind of figure out and to kind of decide about how you're going to do it. And it's, if you're in the beginning of your journey and as you get towards the middle of your journey, that's the time to start trying to figure out like what you're going to do. And it's
Mhm.
also a manifestation that you're going to finish this, I
Yeah,
think. You know what I
yeah,
mean? So when you finish it, how are you going to deal with it? And that's why I think what we're doing is so important sometimes. And I wish that we had
mhm,
had this to prompt us to think about these things earlier, because
yeah,
I probably could have processed a lot of the problems that I'm having now in my head with new friends. I could have probably navigated it better if I had thought about it earlier. But who
mhm.
would think of this stuff?
I know. Yeah, social media is crazy. Actually, it's funny because so one coworker of mine knows about my journey, and we all had like a team meeting last week, and another coworker like pulled me aside and she's like, I didn't want to say anything in front of anyone, but she's like, I kept having you pop up on my For You page. And she's like, I just want to say that I have gotten to know you
Oh,
so well. She's like, I feel like I'm in your living room every single day. And she's like, I've just been able to get to know you as a person. And I'm so proud of everything that you have accomplished. And our our relationship as coworkers is now turning into more of a friendship, just because like I feel like more comfortable going to her and talking to her about certain things. And um, so it's kind of like also switching relationships that you have with people from like either coworkers or whatever it is to friendships, because you have these things like that's kind of connecting you both.
yeah, I'm so glad you shared that, because it's not all negative; it's positive
Yeah.
too, and it can be a good thing. It's a. I mean, most Americans are overweight or obese. I
Right.
think, and that the good news, if there is any in that, is that we all relate to that. We can all relate to each other on what we're going through, even if you haven't started a process, or if you never start a process, and that's okay too. It's
Yeah.
about being happy with who you are, and being happy in life. But the connection that people get, because it's so taboo to talk about this subject,
Mhm.
is remarkable.
Yeah.
And I mean, even with our own doctors, and I know we've covered this too, but it's like I had what we're calling my final weight loss monthly visit with my doctor this week, and I mean, it just really felt so different. Even our relationship has changed. I was like, he's more of a friend now than he's ever been. My doctor. No, I've never. And like my larger world felt like my doctor was a friend.
Well, I think you had some choice words for him towards the beginning. so that's like so that's awesome to have like a 180 to where
Yeah.
like your first like wanting to like cuss him out, be like, what the hell's going on? To now, hey, do you wanna, you know,
In hindsight, though, I really believe though that I was blaming him for where I was, which was also not fair.
right.
So I think that the beautiful thing about this whole transformation is the realization and the responsibility that we start to take on. And I think when I started taking on more responsibility, he respected me more for that too. It
Mhm.
wasn't his fault I was fat, or whatever you want to call it. It was, it was, if there was fault, there was that he didn't stand up to me either and say we got to do something about this. And I hadn't stood up, to myself or my doctors that I'd had in the past to say I got to do something about this because you're young, you don't think that anything's going to happen to you. You just do this invincible thing. It's like it'll go away. It doesn't go away. If you're 25 and you're starting to feel like you're pushing into the overweight category and towards obese, now's the time to do something about that and build a friendship and a relationship with your doctor. I mean, they're your friend too, or they're, if they're a good doctor, they're looking out for you, which is a friendship, right? I mean,
And if they're not, then get another doctor.
get another doctor. And I went through doctors after doctors after doctors because I didn't feel like I had anybody really advocating for me when I wasn't advocating for myself.
Yeah.
So and when I did, now I feel like I've got a friend in my doctor, and we've had some very frank conversations since then that weren't as contentious as that first one, but they're much more in line with what you would say to a friend that you needed help from.
Yeah. That's
And
awesome.
yeah, so it's all connected, I think. So relationships are tough, and I think we're having to learn how to navigate those. And I don't know.
And I think it's not stopping ourselves from creating new friendships
Oh yeah.
and not stopping ourselves from possibly I want to say like rekindle, but that sounds too romantic. But like reconnecting with old friends, so I think it's kind of
Which is still harder. I think it's still harder, these older friends, and I don't know. I
yeah.
don't know. Did I tell you I had a friend years ago who when I may have told you the story. I don't think I said it on the show, but he like he went away. He was kind of a chunkier guy, kind of like what I was, and he went away, and like I didn't see him for like 6 months to a year, and he wound up showing back up on the scene and whatever, and he was stacked. I mean, he just looked wonderful, and so I showed him just a little too much attention. He was just like, "Why now?
Hmm.
Is it because I look better? It's like, am I a better friend now because I look better and whatever?" And I was like, "Oh my God, he's so right." And I was so humiliated by that. And rightfully so. I should have been, but we were young and I was just, kind of, silly about it. I should have been a better friend, before he looked better.
Right.
So
That's
we lose
interesting.
out. We all lose out.
Yeah, no, I think it's I mean it's kind of nice that you have both perceptions now because I
Yeah.
think that will help you in the future. And I think for us too, like just to be more aware of it as well and be nicer to each other or to friends that you might not think
Mhm.
is going through something or a friend that might not look like what you want them to look like in order to hang out with them. So I think it's nice to be just more aware of that, more conscious of it. So, which I think that you are for sure, 100%.
I am, and I'm curious if what your opinion is on this and your take for how we um, if we overanalyze things too much. And I know we started with this kind of over analytical kind of mindset that we do, and that and making new friends pay the price for old friends and that type of thing. Is that how do I put this? It's like that we I don't know how to exactly how to ask this question. It's like that um when someone shows us a little too much attention, do we just back off from that and just decide that it's not real or something, and that we or that that um shallow keeps coming to mind.
Yeah.
Is there a shallowness to that friendship because we now look like this, or or whatever? It's just I don't know, it's a bizarre world. And I'm struggling at times understanding things because I feel like I'm in a totally different planet. That I was an amazing wingman for years because I was the safe person to talk to. It's like, oh, Chris is like, they're not going to take, this person from me. They're not going to, they send Chris out to talk to him because he can talk to anybody and, and get them to come talk to us and whatever because he's safe. They're not going to want him. That's how I felt for
Yeah.
years. And I was okay with that. I was okay being that friend and developing humor around that. And I still will do that and forget. Oh, there's another one right there. Do you find yourself ever saying things that are no longer appropriate? You may not have gotten to this stage of your of your weight loss journey. Maybe you have. But here's an interesting thing that happens with new friends is you'll say something and they don't understand what you mean. Example, Friendsgiving, we were talking about on the last podcast that I was at, and I said something to a new person that I met, who, by the way, is a fan of yours. She's on TikTok. And she and I were talking, and she was saying, it's like, well, how much weight did you lose? And at that point, it was about 40 pounds. And so I made this because I how when you're at your heaviest, you're in self-deprecating type of mode
Yes. Yep.
because that's part of your humor,
Yeah.
and people love the heavy, funny person.
Right.
And so I said, yeah, I was so fat. And she looked at me and she says, you mean PHAT? And I was like, no, fat. And then I caught myself and realized that she's looking at not a fat person or a perception of that term that's so horrible that all of a sudden I'm a thinner person talking about a heavier perspective.
Right.
And it came across so dark for me to have said that. And I immediately apologized and backed away from that whole statement because I was like, I can't talk like that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
My ability to be self-deprecating about being heavy is gone. I can't do it anymore because it's not funny. It's like cringeworthy now.
Yeah. Like you would be that person. Like you would be like the person to be like, oh, I'm so fat like this. And me, I'd be like, what are you talking about? Like you're, so it's kind of like that. Yeah. As I hold that dynamic and you're in that position to where now it's kind of like, I have to be careful what I say. And I think again, I'm not gonna speak for you, but I think for a lot of us, like we used humor as a defense mechanism or a hiding because we knew that we couldn't uphold the beauty standards that, everyone wanted us to look like. However, you're sure like hell that I would be able to make you laugh. Like I'd be able to like talk to you, have a conversation, crack amazing jokes. And so I think for us, we kind of just like naturally do that because we have to make up for something, right? So why not just be total,
Well, you put it out there.
ourselves. Let's make fun of ourselves because we know we're this big, whatever it is. Let's crack a joke at myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's so easy, and it's actually, in the humor side of it, what I used to do was I would throw out what I thought was my weakest part of who I was out front to make it kind of shocking first.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just get that out of the way. And so I would say, so, like, part of the reason why I say I was a great wingman was because one of the first things I used to say to somebody was like, hey, you like fat guys? and I was like, no, I'm just kidding. I know you're not, but my friend's interested in you. Or I would say something like that, whatever. Now me saying that is cringeworthy.
Yeah. Even when you say it, I'm like, no, don't like talk about yourself like that.
Oh, it's horrible. But that's how I dealt with it. Get it out front. And it's like, I hope nobody looks at, pulls that clip of this particular part of the podcast and just hears that, because it's so important to hear the whole story on that, because I could get away with that. And it was funny to others, but self-deprecating to me. And I was willing to take that hit for the humor of it, to be able to talk to people, because I got it out of my system. It's like, we don't have to deal with that anymore because you already know I'm a heavy guy, and we're just going to call it fat.
Yeah.
And we're going to have a laugh about it. And then we're going to talk about something else. So that's how I dealt with it for years. And now, I forget that I don't look like that. And I say something self-deprecating and people look at me like, that's so not cool of you, because they never knew me like that.
Right.
So what do I do with that?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think we're all going to make mistakes or say things that we are like, oh crap, I probably shouldn't have said that. But I think like you get a perfect scenario of what happened with you. Like you instantly apologize, you knew what happened. So I think sometimes it's going to take an adjustment, and for me, I know I'm probably going to say something that I would have normally said when I was bigger that maybe I shouldn't say now. And it's like, hey, I apologize. This is where my mindset is. I'm still navigating this new body of mine because I haven't had this body in quite some time and et cetera. But I think it's just explaining to that person like, hey, once you get to know me more, this is like why I kind of am the way that I am. But that's scary too, because then it's like, okay, are you going to scare them off or not, or
Yeah.
not,
I think you're a jerk, and that's where I was with her. It's like she was talking to me, and we were getting along great and whatever, and all of a sudden I'm a jerk,
Yeah.
saying this. Now we did recover, and she was fine. She understood, like where I was coming from, fortunately, but not everyone that's going to happen with. I might not have recovered from it. I might not even realize what I did, and for a while, but fortunately, I understood right away because, when you look in someone's face, you can see how jarring that is to hear that, and especially hear that from someone who you're perceiving not to be a fat person or a heavy person. I gotta stop saying that. That's the self-deprecating part of me that came out right then. But in my head, I still look like that, even though I know I don't look like that anymore. And there's nothing wrong with looking like that either. But that's how I dealt with it when I was going internal, talking about only me.
Yeah. I agree.
So, we've got to learn how to talk differently to people too. So there's a lot of it that's still on us to deal with, even though we're dealing with a whole lot of different personality out there that, that treats us differently because of society's norms for, what's attractive and what's not. But I had someone actually point out to me also that you might find interesting, is that they said it's not the weight loss, it's the change in attitude.
But you can definitely,
Process that.
yeah, yeah. I think was it like in a bad context or was it in a good context? Like bad how?
No, it
Like,
wasn't in a bad or good. It was that I have, like, for example, that's going to get really like murky, but
it's okay.
the
You don't have to. You don't have to talk about it if you don't want to.
no, we can talk about it. It's
Okay.
like, but it's the the where was I going with this? The whole idea. Let's see, where was I going with that?
Well, I think so. My question is because you're saying that it's not the weight loss; it's the personality that's changed. Is
Oh,
it
yeah.
because you're? And this is definitely not what I think of you, so don't get this
Mhm.
wrong. But it's like quote unquote like you're more arrogant now because you think that your hot's like. Is that what you're talking about? Not to say that
No,
you're doing
it's,
that. I know, like from
I
me
mean, I
personally,
might do that.
huh?
I might do that. I don't know. I don't.
No, 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 no. And I think it's not about. And again, you're not arrogant by any means. I just know from my personal experience, I saw someone lose weight and I saw their personality change a little bit. And me personally, because I was like, I wish I was that confident and I wish that I could be more outgoing that they are. My
Yeah.
perception of that person had changed to where they were like, for me, they're arrogant. I don't like how they came across anymore. It's kind of like, I don't know who you are.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I wonder if
I
that can
think you
happen.
nailed it with the word confidence, because I think that's what they're honing in on, even if they don't use that term, is that
Yeah.
everyone's attracted to confidence, and
Mhm.
not arrogance, but confidence. There's difference, and so I think that as we start to reach our goals, we feel really good about it, and we wound up, much more confident, and that attracts more people. So I think this person, it wasn't bad or good. What they were trying to say was, I think they were trying to hone in on the fact that because I was more confident and because I'm doing things I would have never done
I
like
can see
20
that.
weeks ago, that the confidence level is what they find like alluring. And we're talking about friendships here,
Yeah.
not the other, but it's even people that don't know you are attracted to your personality when you exude more confidence. And so I think that I've done that naturally because, 20 weeks into this and 43 pounds down, yeah, I'm pretty freaking proud of that. And I'm going to have confidence about that because, and I talk about it ad nauseum that I've done this. And especially amongst my friends that have been around through part of this or all of it. And so I think that, we're going to get comments like that, but I don't really think
And
that it was positive or negative.
yeah, and I think it's just, I mean, confidence is not a bad thing.
No, it's a great thing.
Even though, I mean, because I mean, I've lost what, almost 36 pounds, so we're kind of in the same boat. You're more towards the end of your journey. I'm still for sure, like, not even halfway through. But still, like, that amount of weight, like, you do start to change and you do start to maybe act a little bit different. But I think it's just because we are more confident in shining a little bit brighter than we have
Yeah.
in the past. So maybe for some people it's like, well, how dare you have that confidence? Like,
Yeah.
but it's like, no, like, I'm going to have this confidence because I feel good in my body. I feel good in my skin. And I think it's all has to do with that other person and what's triggering them from a
Mhm.
past experience that they've had in their own lives.
Yeah. I mean, because I can see a difference in you from when you started. You have a
Yeah.
whole lot more confidence, whole lot more confidence. And I don't know, I'm going to guess at probably about halfway through your journey. And you already show like massive differences. And most of the people that we know have shown massive changes in their confidence levels, even halfway through their journey, even a third of the way through their journey.
Yeah.
It's enough to really kind of change that personality. And I
Mhm.
wish that I could go back to the larger person that I was and say, it's about confidence. It's not about how you look. And because there's nothing wrong. I didn't hate being heavier. I didn't hate it. I had this conversation with another friend of mine not too long ago who is on his own journey with Ozempic, and I didn't hate being heavy. He doesn't hate being heavy either, and there's something that comes with that too. But um, it's the confidence that we lacked because we were kind of being told that we didn't fit the mold somehow.
Yeah. And that, going back to like friendships and weight loss too, I mean, for sure, like when you have people on social media like saying, "Hey, I'm so proud of you, keep going," like, I personally don't have that in my personal life. I have
Yeah,
that
right.
via social media and just, seeing everyone's comments like that in itself is a confidence boost because we're having all these people cheer us on and make comments like, "Oh, your face is slimming down," or this and that. And it's like, wow, like, thank you. So, it's kind of that in itself like helps with that confidence, which is
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and it's also a comfortable way of doing it too, because they're
Yes.
just like one block button away from, you know, so
Well,
someone,
and I feel like it's more genuine because again, most of everyone who follows us, like, they're going through the same journey. So it's
Mhm.
not just like, "Oh, you look so good." Like, no, you're being fake. Like, whatever, block or what. Like, you can tell
Right.
that it's genuine comments.
Yeah.
Um, and that's why, like, whenever I see people like do their weigh-ins or updates or posting, their first video versus their last video, I'm like, holy crap! Like, you're looking amazing. Because we know what it takes to be going through this journey. Like, we understand what it takes mentally, emotionally, physically, all that stuff. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just
Well,
great.
and we know it wasn't the easy way out. Like some people have
Yeah.
told us it was, is that this was really hard. And sometimes I get a little heady about that, even where I'm like 20 weeks in and I'm making my goals, which is like outrageously fast
Mhm.
for reaching a weight loss goal like that. There was still so much work involved in
Yeah.
that. And I don't think we give ourselves credit for it.
And
So,
I completely agree with that. And yeah, the whole easy way out, it's not an easy way out, just like weight loss surgery. It's not the easy way out.
oh God, no, yeah.
And there's like one night I had a thought of this, and maybe I'm playing a little bit of devil's advocate or hold on, devil's advocate. I can't say that right. But I'm like, and thinking to myself, and again, just my own personal experiences and how much I have struggled for my entire life with my weight and my mental health and all this kind of stuff. I'm like, so what if it's an easy way out? Finally, I get some relief. So maybe it is a little bit of an easy way. I don't care. Like,
Okay.
if that's what you see it as, whatever. But it's not an easy way out because of what I've had to experience to get up to this point.
Hmm.
So if you think that that's an easy way, no, it's not. Because if you want to live my life and experience what I experienced, then you go for it.
Yeah.
This is no easy. And if you think this is an easy way out, then whatever it is. But so, I mean, maybe it is an easy way out. I don't
Yeah,
know.
but
Like,
we've spent, in some cases, our entire lives, with this and trying to figure out, navigate how to fix that part of us. And I
yeah,
was like, okay, fine. So it's not a magic pill, but if you want to believe it's a magic pill and that's what
right.
I took, then, you do you.
Yeah, it's not an easy way out. It's like it's more of a finally, like think like, oh my God, like finally I'm getting some kind of relief. That's what it's like.
Well, it feels
Not,
validating to me that finally there was somebody that felt like this was a big enough problem to address it.
yeah,
And there's a little piece of me that's a little angry that what no one thought of this earlier, you know, that like there wasn't like it took until now. I mean, great, fine. I'm happy for it. Don't get me wrong. But at the same time, it was like, was this not a priority 20 years ago?
yeah,
And I'm just grateful that someone realized this and that, most Americans are having this problem. So when someone really kind of gets you down, and, you're, trying to make new friends and someone hits you up with that terrible term that you're taking the easy way out, because um, you know, I mean, I've heard that more than I care to hear,
yeah.
then, isn't it my time finally to have a
Yes.
medication help me? Do I not deserve that? Do I have to wait until I have diabetes? Do I have to wait until I have do I have to be on a stretcher going to the hospital thinking I'm having a heart attack? Do I have to do all that?
Mhm.
Doesn't the younger generations don't our children deserve to have the tools to fix these problems ahead of time and it not be like moralized, through, you're a bad person because you got heavy. That's stupid. It's
Right.
stupid. We don't, we don't moralize any other disease. And so I don't know, because in the early days of me meeting some new friends, I was like, people were asking me how I did it. And it's like, my first thought was not to tell them. And then I thought, well, I want to tell them because chances are they know somebody if it's not them themselves that needs help in this.
Mhm.
And so I started talking about it and I stopped saying, the drug that we were using. I started saying GLP-1 medication because it's, Mounjaro is not the only one. There's
Right.
lots of good drugs out there. So I started talking to people about it and I was like, I want to be transparent about this. I got help. I don't want anybody to think that I just you know, somehow like use nutrition and exercise. No, it's not that simple for a lot of us and we need extra help. And so I was transparent about it. And I think people respect that now that, I'm not going to tell you I did this on my own because I didn't.
Right.
So, and I think friendships, since we're on that topic, it's important to be transparent about it.
Yep. Be open and honest.
Liking and subscribing to our content really helps us get the message out to people who truly need it. So enough of that for one podcast. But if we'd love to hear from you for what your experiences have been, and if there's something we didn't mention or something we completely skipped over that you're experiencing that maybe we haven't, we'd love to hear from you and to find out what's been going on, what's going on. So share that with us, and we hope to see you on the next episode. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.